Kamala Harris is pulling back the curtain on her turbulent 2024 presidential campaign in her upcoming memoir, 107 Days. The book, set to hit shelves soon, offers an inside look at Harris's raw emotions after losing the election to Donald Trump. She detailed her frustrations with former President Joe Biden's campaign strategy, as well as surprising private exchanges with Trump himself, including his call to her after the assassination attempt. Harris also opened up about her dilemma over choosing a gay running mate and what it meant for the future of her campaign. 107 Days promises to reveal the personal struggles, behind-the-scenes drama, and untold moments that shape one of the most contentious elections in U.S. history. Harris recalls the emotional aftermath of election night, when an aide quietly peeled the words "Madame President" off celebratory cupcakes before serving them to tearful staffers. She remembers asking herself, my God, what will happen to our country?" The next morning, she says, was even harder. Harris admits she was still in denial, caught between bargaining and grief, and a long way from acceptance. Harris defends Joe Biden's fitness for office, insisting she never doubted his ability to serve. But she acknowledges that at 81, fatigue set in, and Biden's age began to show on the campaign trail. She criticized his inner circle for pushing him into the race despite those struggles. Harris writes, "As soon as he walked onto the debate stage in Atlanta, I could see he wasn't right." Yet campaign aides continued to insist to voters Joe Biden won, even when the damage was clear. And as Harris prepared for her own debate with Donald Trump, she says Biden phoned her just minutes before she went on stage, not to encourage, but to complain about gossip he'd heard. Harris recalls, "I just couldn't understand why he would call me right now and make it all about himself." One of the most revealing sections of 107 Days describes Harris's private conversations with Donald Trump. After an assassination attempt against Trump at his Florida golf club, Harris personally requested a call with him. Instead of hostility, she found Trump surprisingly warm. "You've done a great job, you really have," Trump told her. "My only problem is, it makes it very hard for me to be angry at you." He even promised to tone it down on the campaign trail and praised her husband, Doug Emhoff, calling Ivanka Trump a big fan. Harris, however, writes that she did not buy into the charm offensive. "He's a con man, he's really good at it," she writes. Harris also recounts her concession call to Trump, a courtesy Biden never received in 2020. Trump struck a gracious tone, even pronouncing her name correctly for the first time. "You are a tough, smart customer," he told her, "and I say that with great respect."
Tonight's event happens to coincide with the 100 days after the inauguration, and I'll leave it to others to give a full accounting of what has happened so far. But I will say this: instead of an administration working to advance America's highest ideals, we are witnessing the wholesale abandonment of those ideals. And what we are also seeing in these last 14 weeks is Americans using their voice and showing their courage. We all know President Trump and his administration and their allies are counting on the notion that fear can be contagious. They are counting on the notion that if they make some people afraid, it will have a chilling effect on others. But what they're overlooking, what they have overlooked, is that fear is not the only thing that's contagious. courage is contagious. The courage of Americans who are banding together in the face of the greatest man-made economic crisis in modern presidential history. Americans across the political spectrum who are declaring that the president's reckless tariffs hurt workers and families by raising the cost of everyday essentials, devastate the retirement accounts that people spent a lifetime paying into, and paralyze American businesses, large and small, forcing them to lay off people, to stop hiring or pause investment decisions. The courage of Americans we are seeing who are rallying at Social Security offices to protect their hard-earned benefits. Of Americans who are speaking out to say, it is not okay to violate court orders. Not okay. Saying it is not okay to detain and disappear American citizens or anyone without due process. The courage of judges to uphold the rule of law in the face of those who would jail them. Of universities that are defying unconstitutional demands that threaten the pursuit of truth and academic independence. And I will tell you, the courage of all these Americans inspires me. And I have been inspired by the movements like the one in Wisconsin that put Susan Crawford on the Supreme Court, by the State of the People Power Tour that is aiming to ignite a grassroots movement to lift up voices and advance freedom and justice, and by leaders across the spectrum, including congressional leaders like Cory Booker, Chris Van Hollen, Chris Murphy, Jasmine Crockett, Maxwell Frost, AOC, and Bernie Sanders. All who, in different ways, have been speaking with moral clarity about this moment. So here's one of the other things I wanted to talk about tonight and to highlight. So look, some people are describing what's been happening in recent months as absolute chaos. And of course, I understand why. And it's certainly true of those tariffs. Tariffs that, as I predicted, are clearly inviting a recession. But friends, please let us not be duped into thinking everything is chaos. I know it may feel that way, but understand what we are in fact witnessing is a high-velocity event where a vessel is being used for the swift implementation of an agenda that has been decades in the making. An agenda to slash public education. An agenda to shrink government and then privatize its services. All while giving tax breaks to the wealthiest among us. By the way, an agenda that is not lowering costs, not making life more affordable, and not what they promised. It's an agenda, a narrow, self-serving vision of America, where they punish truth tellers, favor loyalists, cash in on their power, and leave everyone to fend for themselves, all while abandoning allies and retreating from the world. And folks, what we are experiencing right now is exactly what they envisioned for America. Right now, we are living in their vision for America. But this is not a vision that Americans want. We are living in a moment when the checks and balances upon which we have historically relied have begun to buckle. And we here know that when the checks and balances ultimately collapse, if Congress fails to do its part, or if the courts fail to do their part, or if both do their part, but the president defies them anyway, well, friends, that is called a constitutional crisis.